This episode is for P2599 on a 2020 to 2025 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 with the 6.6 diesel. In plain language, P2599 may mean the turbocharger vane position is not matching what the engine control module is asking for. The truck may go into reduced engine power and may show service emissions or exhaust fluid messages. Broadly, you're looking at possible actuator power or ground problems, communication issues, a vane position actuator concern, linkage binding or play, debris around the actuator arm, or a turbocharger mechanical issue. The actuator output is switched from ground to 12V to activate the component, so keep that control strategy in mind before blaming the turbo. The monitor is gated by ignition voltage greater than 11 volts. A turbocharger vane position commands steady state for greater than 1 second, engine off for greater than 2 seconds, and once the running conditions are met, the DTC runs continuously for greater than 1 second. The setting logic for P2599 is a command versus response problem. The vane position sensor and desired vane position are not within 25% of each other, with the actual position more closed than desired, and the base vane control fault condition present. Before getting into the P2599 path, start with the basic system checks and follow a structured diagnostic approach. Key on Vehicle and Service Mode. Look for other faults that can affect the data this diagnostic depends on. Do not just chase P2599 if there are current sensor, vehicle speed, air temperature, coolant temperature, turbo actuator, or communication faults that have to be handled first. If one of those supporting faults is present, diagnose that fault first. If not, make sure communication between the turbocharger vane position actuator and the engine control module has not been interrupted. If communication was interrupted, repair that communication concern before continuing. If communication is good, move on to the actuator and turbo checks. Next, inspect for the obvious mechanical causes in the P2599 path. Check for a damaged turbocharger, a damaged turbocharger vane position actuator, and debris around the actuator arm. If you find damage or debris, correct it as needed. If nothing obvious is found, use the scan tool to command turbocharger vane position from 20 to 90% and watch the turbocharger vane position parameter. It should increase and decrease with the command. If the parameter does not increase and decrease, go into the circuit and mechanical testing. If it does respond, reproduce the operating conditions for the code or reproduce the captured conditions and verify that P2599 does not reset. If it resets during that verification, continue into the testing path. If it does not reset, that part of the check passes. For the testing path, turn the ignition off, turn all vehicle systems off, wait as needed for the modules to power down, and disconnect the harness connector at the turbocharger vane position actuator. It may take up to 2 minutes for all vehicle systems to power down. Start with the ground side. Test for less than 10 ohms between ground circuit terminal 2 and ground. If that reading is 10 ohms or greater, test the ground circuit end-to-end for less than 2 ohms. If end-to-end resistance is 2 ohms or greater, repair the open or high resistance in the circuit. If the circuit is less than 2 ohms, repair the open or high resistance at the ground connection. If the ground test at terminal 2 is less than 10 ohms, turn the ignition on and check the ignition feed. A test lamp should illuminate between ignition circuit terminal 1 and ground. If the lamp does not light and the fuse is good, turn the ignition off, remove the lamp, and test the ignition circuit end-to-end for less than 2 ohms. If that circuit is 2 ohms or greater, repair the open or high resistance. If it is less than 2 ohms, pause the vane actuator path and troubleshoot the power mode concern instead. If the lamp does not light and the fuse is open, turn the vehicle off, reconnect the actuator connector, replace the fuse, put the vehicle back in service mode, and verify the fuse does not open. If the fuse opens again, replace the turbocharger vane position actuator. If the fuse does not open, that check is good. If the test lamp does illuminate, turn the ignition off for 2 minutes before checking the actuator arm. Push the turbocharger actuator arm from the top rest position down to the bottom of travel. It should move easily without binding, and the return spring should bring it back to the top rest position. A small amount of spring resistance is normal. The top rest position is vertical, and the bottom of travel is horizontal. If the arm binds, is hard to push down, or does not return, disconnect the linkage from the turbocharger actuator and check the actuator arm again by itself. With the linkage disconnected, if the arm still binds, is difficult to push down, or does not return to the top, replace the turbocharger vane position actuator. If the actuator arm now moves freely and returns to the top, inspect the turbocharger actuator linkage for seized or binding joints. If the linkage is binding or seized, repair or replace it as needed. If the linkage moves freely after that failed movement check, replace the turbocharger. If the actuator arm passed the movement check to begin with, verify the linkage joints are tight and do not have excessive play. If the linkage joints have excessive play, replace the turbocharger assembly. If the linkage joints are tight, put the vehicle back in service mode. Perform the turbocharger vane position learn with the scan tool. Then command turbocharger vane position from 20 to 90% and back to 20%. The scan tool turbocharger vane position value should increase and decrease according to the command. If the value does not change, replace the turbocharger vane position actuator. If the value does change, reproduce the operating conditions for the code or the captured conditions and verify that P2599 does not reset. If P2599 resets after that, replace the turbocharger vane position actuator. If it does not reset, the diagnostic result is good. After the repair, verify the repair and confirm the code stays gone. Only perform the turbocharger boost control initial position learn when the turbocharger vane position actuator is replaced, or when the turbocharger is cleaned, removed, or replaced. There is also an event data check tied to emission-related driver messages and speed limitation. With the vehicle in service mode, the exhaust gas recirculation system malfunction warning event data should all display no. If an event parameter still displays yes, run the vehicle under the operating conditions for the fault identified by that event data, so it can run and pass. That may require driving the vehicle before the message or speed limitation clears. Takeaway: P2599 is not a guess and replace code. Prove the related inputs and communication first. Verify commanded vane movement. Then separate electrical faults from actuator, linkage, and turbocharger mechanical faults. For more diagnostic training, visit stepdiagnostics.com.